In this video, we're going to show how to set up the Cronus Zen Converter onto the PS5 so that the Xbox Adaptive Controller and Quadstick can be used to play all games on the PS5 directly. This is a new update from Cronus Zen, and the update is located in the link in the notes below the video. Using this update, you can plug in your Xbox Adaptive Controller or Quadstick into the USB ports on the front of the Cronus Zen Converter. In this video, we'll show how to set up both the Xbox Adaptive Controller and the Quadstick using this new update. The first thing to do when setting up the Xbox Adaptive Controller or Quadstick with the Cronus Zen Converter on PS5 is to unzip the zip file that I have in the comments below the video. So download the zip file, unzip it to your computer, and then it'll download multiple files in the folder on your computer as shown here on the screen. First, we're going to open this one, CMU Update Tool by Cronus Zen. Okay, now that it's open, we want to plug in our Cronus Zen Converter. On your Cronus Zen Converter, plug in to the USB port located on the back of the converter as shown here. Then, plug the opposite end directly into your computer. Once it is plugged in, press and hold the button on the back, which is the reset button, until it says Zen Bootloader here on the screen. Now that the Cronus Zen is plugged in, it should show up right here in the Firmware Update tool. Click on the Cronus Zen and then click Begin Update. Now that the update is complete, you can close out of the Firmware Update tool. Next, open up the Zen Studio located in the folder that you used to unzip the Update tool. Now, in the Zen Studio, you want to go to Tools, and then you want to reset Zen Studio. So click Reset Zen Studio, and then click Yes. And this will restart Zen Studio and reset it. Once Zen Studio is updated and reset, now you can plug in your Cronus Zen into your Zen Studio. On your Zen Converter, take the USB port that was plugged into the back of the Cronus Zen and plug it into the side to allow it to be recognized by Zen Studio. Once your Cronus Zen is plugged in, it should be registered by Zen Studio. In Zen Studio, go to Device and double check that Enable PS4 Specialty does not have a check mark next to it, Enable PS Remote Play does not have a check mark next to it, and that the emulator output protocol is set to auto. Once you've checked all of these settings are set to these settings, you can now start to set up your Cronus Zen with the PS5, which we'll show next. Now that the Cronus Zen is configured, you're going to want to plug in the USB port to the back of the Cronus Zen Converter, and then you're going to take this end and plug it into your PS5 while you hold down the two buttons on the side of the Cronus Zen simultaneously while you're plugging it in. And you'll see the light on the Cronus Zen flash 3 different colors as you're holding it down. So hold down the 3 buttons while you plug it in and wait for it to boot up and those 3 colors to flash, then release. Once it's boot up, then go to the back and tap the reset button on the Cronus Zen to reset the Cronus Zen. Now, plug in your PS5 controller into the side of the Cronus Zen Converter. Once you plug in your PS5 controller, you should now be able to use your PS5 controller to to activate the controls on your PS5 console. Next in the video, we're going to first show how to plug in the Xbox Adaptive Controller into this setup to use the Xbox Adaptive Controller with the PS5 using the Cronus Zen. Then we'll show how to set up the Quadstick using the Zen Converter. Now that I configured my Cronus Zen, I'm going to show how to set it up with the Xbox Adaptive Controller on my PS5. So, currently the Cronus Zen is plugged in via the back USB port into my PS5, and the PS5 controller is plugged into the side of my Zen Converter. I'm now going to take the cord that is plugged into the back of my Xbox Adaptive Controller, as shown here, and plug it in to the front of my Zen Converter. Once it is plugged in, it'll boot up, and the Xbox light will go solid, and I now should be able to use the controls on my Xbox Adaptive Controller on my PS5 console. And that is how you set up the Xbox Adaptive Controller using the Zen Converter on the PS5 console. In order to get the Quadstick to work with the Zen Converter on PS5, you will need to turn on Boot in PS4 mode on the Quadstick. So, go into your Quadstick Manager program, and under the Miscellaneous tab, go and make sure that Enable Boot in PS4 mode has a check mark next to it. If it does not have a check mark next to it, click it, and then click Save Preferences to Quadstick while your Quadstick is plugged into your computer to enable Boot in PS4 mode on the Quadstick. Now, your Quadstick can be plugged in to your Zen Converter, which we'll show next in the video. Now that the Quadstick is configured in PS4 mode, take the USB cord that's plugged into the back of the Quadstick and plug it in to one of the front ports on the Zen Converter. Wait for your Quadstick to completely boot up, and it now should be compatible on the PS5, and you should be able to activate your Quadstick to move the controls and activate them on the PS5 console. In this video, we showed how to set up the Zen Converter on the PS5 so that adaptive controllers such as the Quadstick and the Xbox Adaptive Controller can be used on the PS5 console. As noted previously in the video, when setting up the Zen in the future to play games, you do not need to hold down the two side buttons on the Zen or hit the reset button when plugging in your Zen Converter. You can just plug it in with all of your components attached, including the PS5 controller and whatever adaptive controller you're plugging into the front of the Zen, and it should plug in and be operational with the PS5 console.